Recorded Books presents an unabridged recording of Making Our Democracy Work, A Judge's View, by Stephen Breyer, narrated by Luis Moreno, and directed by Greta Cohn.
Author's Note. My objective in writing this book is to increase the public's general understanding of what the Supreme Court does. The Constitution's framers and history itself have made the court the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution's meaning, as well as the source of answers to a multitude of questions about how this vast, complex country will be governed, and thus it is important that the public understands how the court carries out its role. I try to facilitate that understanding by explaining how the court first decided that it had the power to hold a federal law unconstitutional, by showing how and why it was long a matter of touch and go whether the public would implement the court's decisions, and by explaining how, in my view, the court can and should help make the Constitution and the law itself work well for contemporary Americans. This book is the work of a judge, a member of the court, and it essentially contains my own reflections about the court and the law. When I read a case, including those decided long ago, I can try to imagine how its author might have felt or reasoned, but I cannot speak as a historian, a political scientist, or a sociologist. Thus, my historical descriptions rely on only a few but well-accepted historical sources. Because I believe it important for those who are not lawyers to understand what the court does and how it works, I've tried to make the book accessible to a general audience. A few chapters involve more complicated and technical matters, but there too, I've tried to make the discussion accessible even to a non-lawyer who can grasp the general themes without following every detail. And in discussing cases, I have often simplified considerably, abstracting from the many factors that enter a judge's decision-making calculus, to highlight a few factors that I believe are key. I hope some readers will want to understand the cases more fully and read the cases themselves. They are easily obtainable on the Supreme Court's website, www.supremecourt.gov. In discussing the cases, I have drawn what I say solely from the written record. For those curious about how these opinions came to be, I have included in Appendix B a brief description of the court's work, as well as a few essential points about our Constitution. I would urge all but expert readers to look through that appendix before reading Parts 2 and 3. I hope this book manages to be both interesting and informative to members of the public, lawyers, and non-lawyers alike. Introduction. Day after day, I see Americans of every race, religion, nationality, and point of view trying to resolve their differences in the courtroom. It hasn't always been so. In earlier times, both here and abroad, individuals and communities settled their differences not in courtrooms under law, but on the streets, with violence. We Americans treasure the customs and institutions that have helped us find the better way. And we not only hope, but also believe that in the future we will continue to resolve disputes under law, just as surely as we'll continue to hold elections for President and Congress. Our beliefs reflect the strength of our Constitution and the institutions it has created. The Constitution's form and language have helped it endure. The document is short, 7 articles and 27 amendments. It focuses primarily on our government structure. Its provisions form a simple, coherent whole, permitting readers without technical knowledge to understand the document and the government it creates. And it traces the government's authority directly to a single source of legitimizing power: we the people. Words on paper, however, no matter how wise, aren't sufficient.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?